Zara Tindall is the daughter of Anne, the Princess Royal, and the eldest granddaughter of Queen Elizabeth II. Her first name was chosen by her uncle, the now King Charles.
The key to understanding everything that follows comes back to this: the decision by Princess Anne that her children would not inherit royal titles.
Zara was the first royal granddaughter in 500 years to be born without a title.
A surprising moment may be unfolding inside the royal family. For decades, Zara Tindall, the daughter of Princess Anne and the beloved niece of King Charles III, has lived her life without a royal title, something that has always set her apart from many of her cousins. But now reports suggest that could finally be changing. In what may become one of the most unexpected royal developments in years, King Charles is said to be considering granting Zara the title of a princess. What led to this move, and what could it mean for the future of the royal family? Join us as we uncover the story. The reason: Zara Tindall is without a title. To the outside world, Zara Tindall is just the Queen's granddaughter who rides horses and shows up smiling at royal events. No crown, no princess title attached to her name. But behind that quiet absence lies one of the most unusual stories in the modern royal family. Because Zara Tindall was never meant to be untitled by accident. It was a choice, a decision fought for behind palace doors long before she was old enough to understand what it meant. And that choice says something remarkable about her mother, about the late Queen, and about how the monarchy actually works when the cameras are gone. So stick around to the end of this video to get the full gist. Zara was born into one of the most famous families in the world. She is the daughter of Anne, Princess Royal, and the granddaughter of Elizabeth II. By blood, by proximity, by history, she is as royal as they come. Yet unlike her cousins, Prince William, Prince Harry, Princess Beatrice, and Princess Eugenie, Zara never carried the title of princess. No Her Royal Highness style, no royal rank. To the public, it might look like an oversight, but within the royal family, it was anything but. Because long before Zara was born, the rules of royal titles had already decided her fate. The modern title system traces back to a royal decree issued in 1917 by George V. The letters patent he signed created a simple rule: royal titles pass through the male line. The children of a monarch's sons automatically receive the style of HRH, and the title of prince or princess. But the children of a monarch's daughters do not, unless the reigning sovereign personally decides to make an exception. That meant when Diana, Princess of Wales, gave birth to William and Harry, the boys were princes from the moment they arrived. But when Princess Anne had children with her first husband, Captain Mark Phillips, there was no automatic royal title waiting for them. Still, the story didn't end there, because the Queen loved all of her grandchildren deeply. And when Anne gave birth to her first child, Peter Phillips, in 1977, the Queen reportedly felt uneasy about the idea that he would grow up without a royal designation. According to royal author Ingrid Seward, the Queen was anxious to give him a title. She was willing to use her authority as monarch to make a special exception. She approached Anne with the offer. A title could be arranged. A royal status could be granted. All Anne had to do was agree, but Anne refused. 4 years later, when Zara was born in 1981, the Queen tried again. Once more, she reportedly raised the possibility of granting titles to Anne's children. Once more, she was willing to bend centuries of royal tradition for the sake of family. And once again, Anne said no. The Queen, who was said to be disappointed, respected her daughter's decision and stepped back. Just like that, Zara and her older brother Peter grew up without royal titles, not because they weren't entitled to consideration, but because their own mother didn't want them to have one. To many people outside the palace, that decision seemed strange. After all, royal titles bring prestige, recognition, and a place in history. Why would anyone turn that down? But Princess Anne saw the situation differently. She believed that titles could become a burden rather than a privilege. In interviews over the years, Anne made it clear she wanted her children to have the freedom to build their own lives. Speaking to Vanity Fair decades later, she explained the reasoning with her usual directness. Most people, she said, would probably agree there are downsides to having titles. And for her children, She believed the disadvantages outweighed the benefits. What Anne understood better than most was the pressure that comes with royal status. Titles bring expectations, protocol, scrutiny. Every move becomes part of the monarchy's image. Anne had spent her entire life under that microscope. She knew exactly how limiting it could be, and she didn't want Zara or Peter to feel trapped by the same system. Instead, she wanted them to grow up with options, to have careers, independence, and choices that royal protocol might otherwise restrict. And that decision shaped Zara's life in ways few royal watchers predicted. Without a title tying her to official royal duties, Zara was free to pursue her greatest passion, equestrian sport. From a young age, she threw herself into the competitive world of horse riding, a demanding sport that requires discipline, resilience, and relentless dedication. She didn't compete as a princess. She competed simply as Zara Phillips, the name she carried before her marriage. And she didn't just participate, she excelled. In 2006, Zara Tindall was crowned eventing world champion. In 2012, riding for Team Great Britain, Zara won a silver medal at the Olympic Games. It was a moment that blended royal pride with sporting achievement, proof that she had built her success through talent and hard work rather than titles. Her independence didn't stop with sport. Without the restrictions that come with royal status, Zara was able to pursue commercial opportunities that working royals typically avoid. Sponsorship deals, brand partnerships, a jewelry line, a lifestyle that blended public visibility with personal freedom. She lived in the Gloucestershire countryside with her husband, former rugby star Mike Tindall, raising their children in an environment that felt far removed from palace corridors and royal protocol. And perhaps the most surprising part of the story is that Zara herself has always supported the decision her mother made. Over the years, she has spoken openly about how grateful she is that she grew up without a title. In a 2023 interview on the Total Sport podcast, she reflected on the advantages of that upbringing. From her perspective, she said, she was incredibly lucky. Her mother's decision allowed her and her brother to carve their own paths, without the weight of royal expectation hanging over every step. Mike Tindall has echoed the same sentiment. When asked in interviews whether he would ever want a prince title through marriage, he has made his position clear with characteristic humor and honesty. The answer, he said, would be no. The couple have built a life that sits comfortably alongside the royal family without being fully absorbed into its structure. For decades, that seemed to settle the question once and for all. The Queen had offered titles. Anne had declined them. Zara had embraced the freedom that decision created. End of story. Or so it appeared. But royal history has a habit of changing course when new monarchs take the throne. Because while Queen Elizabeth respected Anne's wishes, the royal family now operates under the reign of her son, King Charles III. And Charles has spent years quietly reshaping the monarchy, slimming it down, redefining roles, and reconsidering how titles fit into the institution's future. Which brings us to something that happened in May 2024 and June 2025. At the time, it barely made headlines. A small royal moment, a subtle shift in how certain members of the extended family were presented in official circles. Most people didn't notice it, but among royal observers, it sparked a quiet question, a question that had supposedly been settled decades earlier. Could Zara Tindall, the Queen's granddaughter who grew up proudly without a title, one day be offered one after all? Keep watching to get the answer to that question. Why King Charles wants Zara Tindall to have a title. According to reports circulating across royal commentary channels, Charles III has been quietly considering a move that could reshape how one member of the extended royal family is viewed, bringing Zara Tindall into a more formal royal position, with the possibility of a princess title at the center of those plans. No official statement has come from Buckingham Palace confirming such a decision. The monarchy rarely reveals internal discussions until they are already settled, but the story of how this conversation appears to have begun traces back to a very specific moment, a moment that happened in public, a moment witnessed by dozens of people, and a moment that, in hindsight, many royal observers now believe may have quietly set everything in motion. The scene unfolded on the 3rd of May 2024 at the Royal Windsor Horse Show, one of the most beloved events on the British royal calendar. For decades, it had been closely associated with Elizabeth II, who rarely missed the annual equestrian gathering during her reign. Horses were her lifelong passion, and the Windsor Show was one of the rare public events where the late Queen appeared completely relaxed, surrounded by the world she loved most. So when King Charles arrived there in 2024, the appearance carried significance even before anything else happened. Only days earlier, the monarch had returned to public duties after stepping back for 2 months while undergoing cancer treatment. His reappearance marked a cautious but symbolic return to royal life. In fact, the Windsor outing was his third public engagement in a single week, a signal that he was gradually stepping back into the role after his temporary absence. It also marked something else: his first visit to the Royal Windsor Horse Show in 45 years. The last time Charles had attended had been in 1979, and back then he had not been sitting in the stands. He had been competing. In those days, the young prince had taken part in the show-jumping events, riding a horse named Candlewick. The memory of that appearance lingered in royal history as one of those rare moments when a future king stepped into the sporting arena rather than observing from the sidelines. Returning to the event after nearly half a century carried a quiet symbolism of its own. But it wasn't Charles's arrival alone that would end up becoming the most talked-about moment of the day. When he reached the endurance phase of the competition, Zara Tindall was already there. As soon as Zara spotted her uncle approaching, she immediately walked straight toward him. There was no hesitation, no careful choreography, no visible attempt to maintain the distance royal protocol often demands during public engagements. Instead, she did something remarkably simple. She hugged him, not a quick greeting, not a formal handshake, a full, spontaneous, unmistakably affectionate bear hug in front of everyone present. According to eyewitness accounts reported by the magazine Woman's Day, Zara greeted him with a cheerful exclamation, "Ah, Uncle Charles." The king laughed. The two of them stood there talking, smiling, and clearly enjoying the unexpected reunion. For a brief moment, the formal structure of monarchy seemed to disappear entirely. What the audience saw instead was something much more human, an uncle and niece who were genuinely happy to see each other. Woman's Day later reported that someone who witnessed the exchange noticed a small but interesting detail. During the conversation, King Charles appeared to say something that briefly made Zara Tindall pause, as if she had not expected what she had just heard. The moment passed quickly, and the two continued chatting, but the reaction was noticeable enough that observers began wondering what the king might have said. No one outside that conversation knows the exact words, but the eyewitness account, together with reports that began circulating soon afterward in royal coverage, suggested that the king may have been thinking seriously about Zara's position within the family. According to reports in Woman's Day, sources close to royal discussions indicated that Charles believes the situation surrounding Zara and her brother Peter Phillips is the result of an outdated system rather than a deliberate choice about their importance within the family. Under the traditional structure of royal titles, they did not receive princely status simply because their mother, Anne, Princess Royal, is the monarch's daughter rather than a son. Those same reports suggested that Charles sees the matter differently today, especially after the monarchy modernized the rules of succession to remove gender preference. From that perspective, the absence of a title for Zara could be viewed as an inconsistency left behind by older traditions. The reports also emphasized how highly the king regards his niece personally. Observers within royal circles often describe the relationship between them as particularly warm, noting that Charles has long admired Zara's independence, her sporting achievements, and the grounded life she has built with her husband, Mike Tindall. For the king, the idea of offering Zara a title would not necessarily be about ceremony or prestige. According to those reports, it would be about recognizing someone he respects deeply and believes has already proven her value to the royal family in many ways. That framing, that the title is not a favor but a correction of a historical injustice, is significant. Charles is not positioning this as a reward or a strategic move. He is positioning it as something Zara was always owed but never given because of a gendered rule that the monarchy has since partially dismantled. When the Succession to the Crown Act 2013 ended the practice of male preference primogeniture, meaning daughters no longer lost their place in the line of succession to younger brothers, it created a philosophical inconsistency. The succession rules were modernized, but the title rules, still governed by the 1917 letters patent, were not. In Charles's view, according to those close to him, that inconsistency needs to be resolved, and Zara is where he wants to start. Additional reports in royal media went even further, describing as one of the most valuable figures connected to the wider royal family, even without an official role. Observers often point out that Zara Tindall already brings many of the qualities the monarchy relies on: public goodwill, professionalism, and a strong reputation built through her sporting achievements and family life. As an Olympic silver medalist, a devoted mother, and the wife of a former rugby star, Mike Tindall, she represents a modern and relatable image of royal life that resonates strongly with the public. Reports surrounding the story also emphasize the personal side of the relationship between Zara and King Charles. Within royal circles, the king is often described as having a particularly warm affection for his niece and a deep admiration for the independent path she has built. In that sense, the idea of wanting her on his team reflects both a personal bond and a practical reality. Because the moment in May 2024 was about more than a simple family greeting. It came during a meaningful time for the king, his first major public appearance after a period of cancer treatment, and at an event closely associated with the legacy of seeing him warmly embrace the niece he has always been close to carried a sense of continuity between generations. For those observing the royal family closely, the moment seemed to carry a deeper significance. Some commentators suggested it may have been the point when the king began thinking more seriously about Zara's future role within the royal family because they view her as a powerhouse, and whether the question of her title might finally be reconsidered. And then, in the months that followed, the pattern that had been building quietly behind closed doors started showing up in public. In June 2025, Zara stepped in for King Charles at the Royal Windsor Cup final at Guards Polo Club, one of the most prestigious polo competitions in the world. She presented the 75th anniversary trophy in a role traditionally associated with the sovereign. Charles was absent. Zara carried the moment on his behalf in front of an international audience with the ease and grace of someone who has been preparing for exactly this kind of responsibility her whole life. Marie Claire noted directly that she had stepped into her grandmother Queen Elizabeth's shoes, a description that, given everything Charles had been saying privately about Zara's rightful place in the family, felt less like a compliment and more like a confirmation. That same week, Zara Tindall appeared at Royal Ascot, riding in the royal carriage procession, a visibility that went far beyond what would be expected of an unofficial family member. And royal commentator Angela Mollard told Sky News Australia that Zara could one day be to Prince William what Princess Anne has been to King Charles, the tireless, dependable, institutionally committed family member who shows up for every occasion without complaint and without drama. That is not a minor role. That is the backbone of the working monarchy. And Charles, who has spent 2 years watching his working roster shrink through illness, disgrace, and departure, knows exactly how much that backbone is worth. Now here is where the story takes its most complicated turn yet, so don't go anywhere. Princess Anne's shocking request, and what the future holds for Zara Tindall. Now the story takes a shocking turn when you hear Princess Anne may have changed her mind. Because according to reports that surfaced in early 2025, the Princess Royal herself may have approached her brother Charles III with an unexpected suggestion that Zara Tindall should finally be granted the title of princess. This is the same woman who refused titles for her children not once, but twice when the offer came from Elizabeth II. The same mother who spent decades defending the belief that royal titles could be more limiting than helpful. And yet now, according to royal commentary, she may be the one raising the idea again, this time not to reject it, but to reconsider it. If that shift is real, then something significant has changed inside the thinking of the Princess Royal. And the reason may be surprisingly simple. The monarchy is running out of people. For years, the royal family operated with a large group of working members who shared the enormous schedule of public duties. Official visits, charity patronages, international tours, ceremonies, state events. The calendar is relentless. Under Queen Elizabeth II, that workload was spread across a wide network of senior royals, but the structure that existed during her reign has slowly been shrinking. When King Charles came to the throne in September 2022, he had already spent years speaking about his vision for a smaller, more focused monarch. The idea was to streamline the institution, fewer working royals, clearer responsibilities, and a more efficient system built around a tight inner circle. On paper, the plan made sense. In practice, reality had other ideas. The first major shock came in early 2024 when the king himself was diagnosed with cancer. For a period of time, he had to step back from public engagements while undergoing treatment. Suddenly, the head of the monarchy was temporarily absent from the public stage. Almost at the same time, another major figure within the royal family also withdrew from public life. Catherine, Princess of Wales, was recovering from abdominal surgery and later revealed that she too was undergoing cancer treatment. For much of that year, she remained out of the public eye while focusing on her health. In a matter of weeks, two of the most visible members of the royal family had stepped away from duties at the same time, and that exposed a problem the monarchy had not fully prepared for, one that has quietly been building behind the scenes, and that will shock you. With fewer working royals available, the pressure on those who remained increased dramatically. Public events still needed representation. Charities still expected royal support. Ceremonial traditions still had to be maintained. The workload did not shrink just because the team had become smaller. That reality left the remaining working royals, including Camilla, Queen Consort, Prince William, and Princess Anne, carrying a schedule that once belonged to a much larger group. And the situation became even more complicated as other long-running royal issues continued to reshape the institution. The departure of Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, from royal duties in 2020 had already removed two internationally recognized figures from the working roster. Their exit did not immediately break the system, but it did reduce the number of younger royals available to take on public responsibilities. Then there was the continuing fallout surrounding Prince Andrew, whose removal from royal duties meant another senior family member was permanently absent from official life. Piece by piece, the team grew smaller, and when illness entered the picture, the weakness in that structure suddenly became obvious. The monarchy discovered something difficult, but unavoidable. A slimmed-down royal family works only when everyone is healthy, available, and able to carry their share of the load. When that balance breaks, the entire system begins to strain. This is where the idea of bringing additional family members closer to the center of royal life begins to make sense. Figures like Zara Tindall, experienced in public settings, widely respected, and already familiar to the public, suddenly become far more valuable than they might have seemed before. For someone like Princess Anne, who has spent decades supporting the monarchy through thousands of engagements, that reality would be impossible to ignore. Few people understand the scale of royal duties better than she does, and if the institution is facing a shortage of trusted figures to carry those responsibilities, the question becomes unavoidable. Should capable family members remain on the sidelines simply because of decisions made decades ago? Or is it time to reconsider those choices in light of the monarchy's current needs? If reports are correct, that may be exactly the conversation now taking place behind palace walls, because the royal family has reached a point where tradition alone may not be enough to sustain the workload it faces. And if that is true, then the idea of Zara Tindall becoming Princess Zara may no longer sound as impossible as it once did. But the story is far from over. Because while the idea of Zara Tindall getting a title sounds interesting, here is something that often gets lost in the excitement surrounding this story. Giving a princess title is not straightforward. It is not simply a matter of deciding he wants to do it and issuing a document. The legal and constitutional mechanics involved are far more complicated in Zara's case than they are for almost any other member of the royal family. And once you understand why, the story suddenly becomes much bigger than it first appears. The core issue lies in the rules established by the 1917 Letters Patent. Under those rules, Zara was never automatically entitled to a royal title in the first place. For Charles to give Zara a princess title now, he would need to go even further. It would require issuing a new letters patent, creating a fresh exception, specifically extending royal titles to the children of a monarch's daughter born to a non-royal father. That is a meaningful constitutional step, and one that would immediately create a precedent. And that precedent could trigger wider debate inside the royal family, particularly around figures like Lady Louise Windsor, the daughter of Prince Edward, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, who technically has the right to use a princess title but does not currently do so. Then there is the financial reality. Turning Zara into a working royal would likely mean bringing her into the official structure funded through the sovereign grant, effectively placing her on the royal payroll. That would come with restrictions. Zara currently enjoys financial independence through endorsements, partnerships, and business ventures, opportunities that working royals are generally not allowed to pursue. And finally, there is perhaps the biggest obstacle of all: Zara herself. Recently, she made it clear she was grateful not to hold a royal title, while her husband Mike Tindall suggested he would likely turn such an offer down. This is not a couple who have quietly been hoping for elevation. They have repeatedly expressed appreciation for the freedom their untitled life provides, which leaves the story balanced in two directions at once, between a monarch who may want to correct a historical imbalance and a family that has long embraced life outside the royal title system. And figuring out which direction wins requires understanding something that almost nobody has talked about yet. So in this case, we just have to watch things unfold. What do you think? Should King Charles give Zara Tindall the princess title she was never automatically entitled to, and would she even accept it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We would love to hear them. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. And click the next video on your screen. You will not want to miss it.